Welcome, all you MCU fans, to the latest episode of True Believers. I am your host, Kyle, and yes, I do know where the Y is. And we are here to talk about what is happening in The Sopranos. Is it The Sopranos? Wait, let me bring up my tag team partner in this show just to make sure I've got this right.
Yeah.
Keviners.
Okay. Hold on, Kyle. I'm trying to figure out this deal with the goat. Hold on. Right. Okay. Yeah. Wongers. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. And I signed on the dotted line. Right. Gotcha. Okay. Can you get them
I got a
out
gin
of
and
the
tonic
email?
here for you, Kevin.
Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Bye. Sorry, it was the goat guy. I had to make a deal with him. He's very busy right now. How's it going?
This is the show where we talk about The Sopranos, right? All
Yes.
spoilers on The Sopranos.
Spoiler alert, brother. Don't pull a Madison.
Yeah, but do we know where the Y is yet? Still haven't figured that one out.
Yes, I will explain.
Oh, okay, good. Kevin, we'll have a whole section on that. But yes, we are here to talk about everything that's going on in the MCU, most specifically She-Hulk Attorney at Law, which means we're about to have a bunch of gamma radiated, you know what they are called, spoilers.
Kyle, by the way, hold on real quick. You told me that you had a bird for me. What was this?
A bird? No, I don't remember a bird. I've been busy searching on dating apps, and I can't seem to find my matchup with Jen Walters. It's really starting to break my heart.
Did she swipe the other way?
It might be, but considering her last experience, I'm here to comfort Tatiana. Oh, I'm here to comfort Jen Walters. Tatiana. How are you, my friend? Are everything going okay? Are you enjoying our trip into She-Hulk so far? We are almost to the 5th episode already.
I'm really enjoying the show. It's fun, it's funny, and they're having a lot of fun with the MCU canon, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it's been a blast, and we got a very fun episode of She-Hulk to talk about. But just a quick reminder before we get started, make sure you check out our True Believers Facebook page, where we keep you updated on all the happenings of the MCU. Could be a lot happening this weekend. D23 is here. We've already got some Marvel video game announcements, which look pretty interesting. Check those out. We'll see what other kind of news we get from D23, and I'm sure we'll be back next week to report all of it. But in the meantime, let's not waste any more time. Let's kick into phase 1. You got some magic tricks for me, Kevin?
Yes. Well, I got a plot description for you.
Oh, that'll work.
All right, here we go. Donnie Blaze, a magician at Mystic Castle, who was expelled from Carmartage for unethically using his powers, sends an audience member named Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y. What? But it's not where you think. She was sent to another dimension where she makes a deal with a demon before being transported to Wong's home in Carmartage. Wong approaches Walters and asks for her help to make an example of Blaze so that people who like him will not be able to misuse the mystic arts. So they launch a legal case against him and the Mystic Castle owner, Cornelius P. Willows. Meanwhile, Walters creates a profile on a dating app in the hopes of expanding her social life, but has little success until she changes it to her profile for She-Hulk. I wonder if she trademarked that. Find out. Blaze accidentally unleashes a swarm of demons at one of his shows, but Wong and Walters are able to stop them before she threatens Blaze and Willows into complying with her case and her cease and desist order. The next day, however, Walters learns that Titania has been freed and is filing a lawsuit against her, having trademarked the name She-Hulk. And in a post-credit scene, Madison and Wongers are watching TV together, and they're comparing drink recipes.
Great job on the great job on the plot analysis, Kevin Nurse. I just got to say.
Sure, Kylers.
Yeah. Hey, but I know but the Y is not where you think. Yeah. The Y is not where you think. Yet again, an absolutely fun episode of She-Hulk. I'm here to comfort Jen Walters. You know, she was done dirty in this episode. I'm just saying. But
Hold on. You know, when you see that little montage of all the dates that she is on, you're the
mhm.
guy that's like asking her about her powers and calling her a
No, no,
specimen. You are so that guy. I can tell.
no, no, no,
You're
no, no.
you're the real creepy nerd. I can't.
No, no, no. I'm the guy who just can't speak because I'm tongue tied. Truthfully, though, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'd much rather go out with her as Jen Walters. I'm just saying.
Yep. Yep.
Now,
Yep.
I got to talk about this though because there's a fun little cameo in part of the dates. The guy who's trying to compare bench press with her.
Yes.
That gentleman's name is David Otunga. He's a former WWE wrestler, but he's more famous. He is Jennifer Hudson's ex-husband.
Ah, the singer / American Idol finalist, right?
Yeah, from the movie Dreamgirls and
Okay.
things
Okay.
like that.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
interesting little cameos, but no, an absolutely just fun episode. The fourth wall on this show, Kevin, just improves and improves every week, and this was some of the best yet.
I liked how she's like, "Hey, Wong's in the episode again." It's kind of like Twitter armor.
I know that might have been the line of the show.
Yeah, that was really good. I got one of my biggest laughs from this episode is after the judge denies Jen's preliminary injunction. Donnie, who had previously made a rabbit appear, tells Jen and Wong and Madison that he also has a bird. Cue the middle finger.
By the way, is it just me, or are the courtrooms in this show lacking proper security? I mean, he's sneaking smoke bombs in, and
Yeah, there was people saying, you wouldn't have Madison be like that in front of a judge because she's drunk. That would never happen. But guys, this is just a fun comedy. You just got to let some of this stuff go, and it's done for humor. It's a sitcom if you think about it, Kyle. It's the new generation sitcom, which I'm going to say started in the 90s, Kyle, where you had the funny show, but no laugh track, no live audience. That started kind of creeping in a little bit more. Kind of like, Sex in the City. It's a sitcom, basically, with drama, of course. But, you still had your sitcoms, but we're seeing a lot of that now in the 2000s as well. We're seeing this new version of a sitcom where there is no laugh track, there is no live audience, but it's funny and it's a half-hour sitcom.
I think there's also something else that's happening in sitcoms that are just really expanded on in this show. Is there's a little bit of self-awareness to these sitcoms, even if they're not breaking the fourth wall.
Yep.
I think about
kind
even
of
Big
poking
Bang.
fun of itself a little bit. Yeah.
Big Bang Theory, New Girl,
Yep.
a couple that spring to mind like that.
Yeah,
So,
great.
Yeah.
Great suggestion. Yep.
So, but yeah, I love having Wong back, and like I said, he is Twitter armor. I don't care what anybody says. Wong is Twitter armor. Wong's got to work on his social skills a little bit, and we don't all follow the book of Ashante, Wong. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm even more depressed by though is he's the Sorcerer Supreme, and he's still not caught up on The Sopranos.
Yeah, you kind of snooze or lose when it comes to stuff that's been around for quite a while, But I guess when you're on top of a mountain in Nepal, you can kind of shield yourself for certain spoiler warnings, I guess. I mean, they have Wi-Fi there. We learned that from the first, Doctor Strange movie. So obviously you're going to get some type of like pop culture seeping in somewhere if you got a smartphone or, Wi-Fi device. But yeah, so thoughts on the cast, Kyle. I want to go in a little more with Madison later, played by Peggy Guggenheim. But we did get Titania, sort of, and we got, of course, Morse Walters. Mark Lynn Baker returns as Jen's dad.
Yeah, I loved how he comes in. He's got all these security things and a shovel. What's a shovel for, Dad?
And of course, Donnie Blaze.
Yes, Rice Corio. I believe that's how he pronounced it. For a lot of you longtime fans, you might know him from Entourage. He played crazy, insane director Billy Walsh. But just playing up a lot of interesting, fun things here. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit later. But Donnie Blaze started a whole side conversation about something in the MCU. So
yes. So if there's anything else with the cast, Kyle, they were a lot of fun as usual. I I think we get a good blend of these characters kind of coming in. And I'm really digging Nikki Ramos, played by Ginger Gonzaga, her friend, especially, when they're kind of just at the bar and that guy comes up and hits on him, and she's kind of like, saying to change her profile to She-Hulk. I thought that was really funny. That was a lot of good there stuff. But we do have an article again, Kyle. Of course, our friends at Den of Geek by Alec Bojalad. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 4. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has always adopted a, let's say, irreverent tone. The precedent was established early on in 2008's Iron Man, using the film's screenplay as more of a suggestion than a Bible. Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges helping imbue the franchise with wise-cracking improvisational spirit that would carry on just about every other film. Still, even though most Marvel properties don't let too many beats pass between jokes, none of them have ever fully bent towards outright cartoonish farce. That is, not until She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Through 4 episodes, She-Hulk is truly like nothing else Marvel has ever produced, and perhaps that's why it's proven to be so divisive. Episode 1 established its heroine fourth wall-breaking abilities, and since then, the show has allowed itself to become goofier week after week, as it's slowly wading into deeper goof waters, teasing to see what it can get away with. That journey culminates, for now at least, in this week's This Is Not Real Magic, in which She-Hulk finally achieves the serene self-actualization of maximum goof. This episode is essentially a live-action cartoon from wonderfully funny cold open that sees another legal douche of the week butt up against the mystical forces of the MCU, to the post-credit sequence that checks back with the Wongers and his new best friend with the questionably spelled first name. What's in between those grand comedic set pieces? More broad humor. It's hard to tell whether She-Hulk is actually getting funnier, or is it merely upping its jokes per minute quotient? Either way, Is This Not Real Magic is both the show's funniest half hour yet and most complete example that it knows what it wants to be. It's becoming increasingly apparent that for Marvel's television offerings, the lower the stakes are, the more fun the audience will have. It's an interesting point there. Mm-hmm. And that dynamic bears itself out once again here. Wong, who Jen rightfully tags as a fan favorite in her monologue this week, as well within his rights to destroy the man who spilled the Sopranos for him, a fate worse than the snap itself. That is all neatly ties into She-Hulk's story this week, which is icing on the cake. Kyle, I want to ask you real quick before we get into some of the topics here, that what makes this show fun is the lower stakes that we have here. They're allowing these characters to kind of maybe not necessarily be more human, but to kind of be more real. I don't know. What's the word you would use? What do you think?
More relatable.
Thank you.
More like this is somebody who we might meet on the street, somebody who's got flaws, somebody who isn't this perfect superhero or just so lovable or whatever. Let's be honest, Jennifer Walters is the kind of person outside of being a Hulk you can meet in day-to-day life. And a lot of these people are. They're people who I can see this person being my coworker or something like that. So that's what makes She-Hulk so relatable. I really like the fact that they have been establishing the comedy, because a little spoiler here, guys. D23 started up today, and Marvel did sneak out a mid-season trailer for She-Hulk for what's coming. Some stuff with Titania, obviously Daredevil, who we know has been coming. So I don't think it's not necessarily that they're going to tone down the comedy, but I think there's going to be a little bit of shift where they're going to get more into the big story for She-Hulk for this season, a little bit more of some of the questions that are going to be answered, maybe who the boss was, the Wrecking Crew was referring to, what's going to happen with Titania. But I think the humor is going to be there, because I think that's what these first 4 episodes were about, was establishing the humor and the tone of She-Hulk. And I think now the rest of the way we're going to see it get a little more Marvel-y as far as superhero type stuff, but still maintain that comedy side of it.
I want to elaborate on that a little bit more, Kyle, because I think that the way the humor is coming across is rubbing some people the wrong way. I had a guy at work who is a Marvel fan. He has not watched all of the Marvel properties. And after the twerking incident, as some people are calling it, the end of the last episode, I think it was, he's like, dude, I haven't watched She-Hulk, but she was twerking with, I'm sorry, what's that?
Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, Megan Thee Stallion.
Stallion.
It's like, what was that about? And I had to explain to him, basically, it was, Megan was actually playing herself, and they're trying to, one of the things that Marvel likes to do is they like to incorporate real pop culture people that we know here in our reality, in their reality, so it makes it more relatable, and it makes us wonder what would happen if superheroes were among us. We would still have celebrities that would have to comment and or interact with these people. And that, and I explained the scene a little bit, and him having that scene, he's like, oh, okay, I get it. But he had immediately heard of the Twitter and social media backlash, like how dumb or silly that many fans may have thought that was. I did not, of course. You and I both enjoyed it. We enjoyed it for the fun of it, which is one of the reasons why we like this episode. But the humor is throwing people off. I get it, and maybe it's not what they want, and I get that too.
Well, again, I'm going to come back to anybody who's saying, "Oh, this is humorous and it's not like the comic." Go read that. You've never actually read a She-Hulk comic in your life, because most of the She-Hulk comics are lighthearted and enjoying it. And come on, people, not.
But understand this, Toe. I don't want to zero people out like myself who hasn't read the comics, and I don't want them to feel punished for not having to read the comics. But that's not an excuse. But I also want to say, I think that what these shows do, Disney Plus shows that allow you to do, is to take these chances and to have fun, because we've had some heavy-handed TV series that are dark and depressing and, and stuff like that. And it's nice to have a fun aspect of something.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to zero out people who haven't read the comic, but there are people out there who I've read the comic, and I'm like, what I've really liked in this last week, as far as the twerking issue, was that there are people have been pulling stuff from old She-Hulk comics going, really? You're complaining about the twerking? And there's stuff that's happened in the comics that makes the twerking look tame. So right. That's all I'm saying is that,
Gotcha. Okay.
And not everything. This is something I think is a part of this whole Phase 4, Kevin. And I talked about this a little bit last week. I'm not going to go deep, but Phase 4 is Marvel taking chances because they can. They had their Infinity Saga. They really established the universe. They made them this property. Now they're this big tentpole property. They can take some risks and change things up because they have a platform where they can experiment on. It's not producing a huge movie per se. And two, let them have a little fun. Let everybody get a chance to have a palate cleanse before we dive into what we're going to see in Phase 5 and Phase 6. Now that we know what's coming. This has been our chance to just have some different sides of the Marvel universe, different things. Yes, it's not been for everybody. Not everything's been for everybody, but there's been people who've enjoyed at some one way or another something different in Phase 4. Whether they like Doctor Strange because of the Sam Raimi side and his perspective, or they like She-Hulk for the comedy, or they like Moon Knight for the mental aspects it did and the mental games it played. But there's been something for everyone within this phase, but not everything for everybody, but something for everyone.
I think, and I'm not trying to coin a phrase here, Kyle, but I think what I'm having to come to terms with here, and I think that fans should try to understand as well, is that I'm going to call the MCU what's called the main canon, and then I'm going to call it the side canon or the fun canon, where the main canon is basically, yes, the big threat, the big overarching story that will bring our heroes together to fight the big villains and whatever the next biggest villain, Kang, whatever, right? But then there's the side canon that is canon, but it's like the fun stuff, as you say, the relatable stuff, the stuff that we as normal humans without power can relate to and have fun with. And I think that, as you say, you're right. They are taking chances. And I think it's important that they do that. I haven't liked all the chances that they've taken, and I've been vocal about that. But I give it credit for doing what it's doing, and I think enjoying a show like this falls under that side/fun canon.
And this is like the comics in a way. You're building a greater universe. Not everything is this epic scale story. Comics, you have some crossovers here and there, but you also have some single issue stories, and that's all they are. That's what these shows in some cases are. They're these like getting a single issue story comic. But this, and She-Hulk is very, very much that. And you're building a bigger world. You're not streamlining to all these to a major event. Because that has always been the goal, is to build the world. What I find so funny, Kevin, and I'll leave it at this, is for so long, especially after Endgame and stuff, people were like, "Oh, it's the Marvel formula. The movies all have the same, and things all have the same formula." And now they're doing some things that aren't what the Marvel formula is, and now people are complaining they're not following the Marvel formula. You can't win for losing. Just enjoy it for what it is, and if it's not your thing, great. If it is, enjoy it. Not everything in the MCU has been my thing in this phase, but I've still found a way to enjoy it and at least participate in it.
You have the choice to stream it once or stream it more than once. It's your choice. Or not stream it
except,
so, yeah.
Except, Kevin, when we're told by the VP of Marvel Studios that we need to watch it 7 times.
This is true. Luis, I'm working on it. All right. I want to talk about we'll talk about Madison here, Kyle. So the article goes on. As an increasingly established pop culture force, the Marvel Cinematic Universe now reserves a right to interrogate its own canon for humorous effect. And in She-Hulk, it's having quite a bit of fun doing so. None of it would work, however, if the show treated the question with any kind of real reverence. The legal questions are interesting, but not that interesting. So wisely, in the place of real in-depth analysis, She-Hulk opts for cartoonish spectacle once again. This is where its swelling cast of suitably cartoonish supporting characters come into play. All of the non-superpowered regular, and I'm doing air quotes for that, characters in the background of the She-Hulk have sneakily become the show's greatest asset thus far. Whether it's a local newsman on the street interview gone wrong, or a TikToker assessing She-Hulk's bangability, anyone in this universe seems like they just stepped out of a contentious Pawnee City Council meeting in the best way. This week introduces perhaps the greatest of them all, Madison, played by Patty Guggenheim. The perpetually white girl, wasted young lady introduces herself as Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but it's not where you think. Twice presents 2 of the episode's biggest laughs for us. When she pops back up in the post-credit to watch This Is Us with Wong and compares drink recipes, it's another unexpected delight. Sometimes the MCU attempts to introduce normal, I'm doing the air quotes again, Janes and Does like Dane Whitman, Kit Harington in Eternals, or the unnamed waitress in the Avengers to remind our heroes of what they're fighting for. But none of these characters have endeared me to the Avengers' world-saving necessities than Madison. Fight harder, Wong. We've got to love this lovable train wreck to brunch. So I wanted to talk about Madison, played by Patty Guggenheim, Kyle. She left an impression with me. First of all, and I want to let you know there's a fun website I go to called tvtropes.org, and I find some interesting bits from there, and I found a couple here. Crouching moron, hidden badass. Madison, who by all accounts might look like some hard-drinking party girl of limited ability, manages to return from an alternate dimension, having forged a pact with the demon to get home, and having performed some activity which resulted in her having a heart in her hand. I'm having flashbacks to Indiana Jones 2.
Are you feeling a little Temple of Doom?
Come down to my. Deal with the devil. Madison had to sign a pact with a goat demon named Jake to escape from his realm. It cost her 6 drops of blood, and discussing the specifics will lead him to claiming the souls of her family and herself. Okay, she may seem like a ditz, Kyle, but she seems a little bit of a badass.
No, Kevin, I've already got this figured out. We don't have all of our Phase 6 announcements yet. Coming to Disney Plus, Wong the series. The Wong must rescue Madison from whatever deal she made during this episode of She-Hulk. And it's
Okay.
it's a 6-episode series about Wong trying to save his best friend Madison.
Hold on to that thought, because I have that topic coming up, because I want to ask a what if, and that's a what if. Love that, by the way. And yes, I would watch that on Disney Plus. Kyle, your thoughts of Madison, played by Patty Guggenheim.
The article brings this up. This is one of those characters where I could see this character making an occasional appearance in She-Hulk, popping back up, or somewhere else in the MCU. Marvel is very good about introducing these kind of human type characters that are, you don't think much of them, but they end up playing a part. They referenced Dane Whitman, who's going to be playing a much bigger part in the MCU to come. That's not even a question. The waitress in Avengers, who, if you watch some of the deleted scenes, actually had a bigger role to play in the Avengers than what was initially advertised. Of course, obviously, some of our other quote unquote human characters, such as, Jimmy Woo, or our boy, I can't think, Luis, which I'm sorry. When the MCU finally wraps up, Kevin, we just need to have a movie where Luis goes on for 2 hours telling the whole tale of the MCU.
I would pay $25 to see that in IMAX.
Yeah.
Do you hear that, Luis D'Esposito?
Michael Pena. But okay. But these are the kind of fun things that Marvel does. And again, this is a kind of character which I wouldn't be surprised if she shows up again in some kind of cutscene, or even in She-Hulk in another way. Or, like I said, have some fun with Wong. I really hope Marvel's watching this and they decide we need to do a little more with Wong. And I think a Wong Source Supreme show on Disney Plus really would be a good idea. But it's Twitter. It's Twitter armor.
Yes. Okay, Kyle. So Patty Guggenheim. First of all, if you go to her IMDb, she has what some not well-known actors have, is a reel of stuff that they've done. They put together. There was a scene with her and Danny Trejo. There was a scene with her and some other people from other shows. I'm forgetting the name of some of them, but Danny Trejo stood out. She's very funny. She plays a couple of ditzy characters in some other roles as well, but she's very funny. And so I recommend you watch that. It's like maybe 2 minutes, something like that. It kind of shows her in some scenes and some other stuff that she's been in. And I just want to mention those real quick. Florida Girls, Mr. Mayor, Splitting Up Together, Modern Family, Reno 911, Liza on Demand. What else was she in? Super Mansion, a bunch of other stuff. Mike Tyson Mysteries, by the way. She's in that. Mm-hmm. But so she's on Instagram as well. She goes under PATRISCUIT. That's her Instagram. And when you started talking about her, she had 28.4 thousand followers. And when you ended, she was at 28.5.
Yeah. She is at that precipice of just getting ready to blow up because of this. And
yes.
She's going to, her career is completely changed after yesterday.
I thoroughly enjoyed her character. When she first came on, I was writing her off like, okay, a ditzy character that's watching this magic show. But when she came into the courtroom and the scenes with Wong were just hilarious. And the end credit scene I thought was great because I actually felt like they were bonding, which I thought was funny. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that. I wanted to see more of that. And I want to give it up to Patty Guggenheim for doing what she does best, is comedy. She's very, very funny. And doing comedy is hard. Ask any actor that, when you do comedy, a lot of certain actors have a thing about comedy and they do it really well, and some don't. But check her out on Instagram. She's very, very funny. I'm very, very, very happy of her role in this. And Kyle, I would love to see her drop in another TV series, even in a movie.
What I'm going to say too is what benefits her is her character is so outrageous, and to play her off of Wong, played by the amazing Benedict Wong, who has this very serious side, but has these little dry sense of humor moments. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
One of the first ones that always comes to mind is in Infinity War, where he's trying to get money together to get a sandwich, and he's like, "Well, I could go for a tuna melt," and it's his delivery, and it's the same thing when they're talking about the drinks in the stinger part of it. It's just his delivery plays perfectly off of her over the top character.
So another point I want to bring up as the article ends here, and I want to give credit again to Alec Bojlad. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. He ends by saying, "Is This Not Real Magic is a really enjoyable half-hour of television. The only areas in which it struggles are when it tries to inject some perfunctory superhero action or gravitas into the proceedings. Donnie Blaze's storyline did indeed need to end with him screwing everything up and unleashing goo demons all over our realm. But the execution of She-Hulk and Wong taking care of it has all the visual flair and import of a custodian taking out trash. Generally speaking, She-Hulk works better in the courtroom than on the battlefield." And he ends by saying, "For the most part, however, She-Hulk now seems to neatly understand its weaknesses and strength as it approaches the halfway point. The final scene, pre-Wong Stinger, sets up what promises to be the show's arc for the rest of the season," trademark She-Hulk. "And thankfully, it looks like the action is heading back to the courtroom where Jen She-Hulk and the show itself belong." So this brings up the point here that the strength of the show is in the courtroom, which is pretty much where I felt it was going to be the strength of the show, because it is called Attorney at Law. But I think that when we're used to seeing superheroes, Kyle, we want to see them beat up some bad guys. And we saw a tease of that. And we saw her take care of some demons in a very funny way, especially holding that one up, which I thought was kind of funny. I think this is another thing that's throwing people off, is that it is an actual courtroom comedy, Kyle. But that is its strength, and that's okay, right?
Yeah, it's fine, and I do think are going to get a little bit more of a superheroing She-Hulk in the second half. Let's face it, they're bringing in Daredevil, they're bringing Matt Murdock in Daredevil. You're going to get some superheroing, and you're going to get, because it's Daredevil, you're going to have a little bit up in the action sequences compared to what they were doing with Wong in this episode, which they were still trying to be silly and fun with these crazy demons and things like that. I think there's going to be a little bit upping of the superhero side, but they're still going to have the fun in the courtroom because you're bringing in Matt Murdock, which means you're going to keep it in the courtroom as well as having some superheroing going.
I've got a question for you, Kyle. Can I just bring this up?
Yep.
There's been some emphasis on this show about finding a match for She-Hulk. Will she find a match, and will Matt Murdock swipe right or swipe left?
Oh, trust me, if you have seen the mid-credits, the new trailer that's out for the mid-season for She-Hulk, let's just say she's swiping in the positive direction for Matt Murdock. But you know, this is the thing. It's really not fair. You know, you put Charlie Cox, and especially with that kind of 5 o'clock shadow Matt Murdock he has, and just
right.
It's just like it's not fair to the ladies, because like dude's just charming and got the looks, and it's like we all want to be Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. Come on.
This episode has its highest review from our writers here at Den of Geek. It's a 4 out of 5. So there you go.
So real quick before we move on to the next phase, Kevin, there is one other point I want to bring up real quick, because we are now past everybody seeing the first 4 episodes going forward.
Oh, you mean the reviewers who got to see the first 4? Yes.
First 4.
Yes.
Correct. So I'm really curious to see if we're going to see a change in the reviews.
Yeah.
Now that people we're seeing that, just a curiosity, something we're going to have to watch for as we go forward to see what.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be hopefully more objective and more not spontaneous, but more of like not having to hide what I really know type of review, and I hate that.
Yeah. Speaking of things, though, Kevin, the gamma's building up a little bit, so I'm going to activate phase 2. Time for a little trivia. I'm sure, Kevin, it's gamma packed. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, so Wong's first scene in this episode, he's watching The Sopranos season 5, episode 12, long-term parking, and Madison spoils that's when Adriana dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that episode because like they chase her out into the snow and she realizes what's happening. I don't remember what the episodes are called, but I do remember that episode. I just didn't remember the name of it. So Reese Corio, who plays Donnie Blaze in this, he's married to the episode's director, Kat Corio. So there's a little bit of like, hey honey, we're looking to fill this spot. You want to be in it? You want to be in She-Hulk? He's like, yes, please.
How much you want to bet, though? She looked at him and said, "You're leaving Billy Walsh at the door."
Yeah, I know, right? He was the one that was going to direct the big movie, the big dramatic movie where he played Pablo Escobar, right?
He did direct it. Medellin.
He did direct.
Medellin.
Right.
That bombed so bad.
Yes, that's right. Medellin. That's right. Okay, so Kyle, we might as well talk about this because I know you wanted to mention this. The name Donnie Blaze is a pun on the alter ego of the first Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze. Given that Donnie Blaze is misappropriating real magic, it's likely that Johnny Blaze exists in the MCU and Donnie is misleading his audience into thinking he's related to Blaze, who would be known to the public as the Daredevil stuntman, which in turn foreshadows the plot twist of Titania suing Jennifer for the trademark infringement over the use of the name She-Hulk. Are they reaching here, or do you think this is a fun way to let's tease that we're bringing in other superhero X-Men-y type people?
So I'm going to say this is a little bit maybe of both, because I wouldn't put it past, especially She-Hulk writers, to, okay, we're going to have a little fun, because there's been a lot of rumors about who might play Ghost Rider in the MCU. Obviously, he was played by Nicolas Cage in the 2 films for Fox. There's been a lot of talk, maybe Ryan Gosling as Ghost Rider, or a few other people being the Johnny Blaze character. I think I just caused Kevin to have, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or if the heat in California is finally getting to him.
Dude, especially after his Drive character, come on.
There have been some of those rumors floating around.
Wait, hold on. Did you see that meme floating around where it was like this little person like crouching in the corner underneath the table, and then like some mysterious, I forget who it was, but saying it was like MCU trying to cast everybody, and the one little person hiding was not cast in the MCU.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but I think they are definitely having plans for Ghost Rider, because they are really going to be focusing a little bit more on the supernatural side. We've seen it a little bit with Moon Knight, obviously stuff with Doctor Strange. We know Blade is coming. That's going to get a little bit more onto the supernatural side as well. Marvel is expanding its horizons into different corners of their universe in the MCU. So I do think we're getting a Ghost Rider. So I think they're having a little fun, but it's kind of like a wink and a nudge at the same time. So, but yeah, I'll be curious. I did find it funny that his name was Donnie Blaze. I'm like, at first I thought they said Johnny, and it was Donnie, and I think it got a lot of people because there's been conversations all over the internet about this.
So a couple little time wonky stuff here in the trivia. Just before Madison King lands in Wong's living room, he can be seen dancing to the Sopranos theme song, which I love that song, by the way. And I think he has a cigar and a drink, which I think is great because, Tony Soprano, obviously, it's very, but when she lands a few seconds later, Wong is seen having watched the episode for 40 minutes. No big deal. That's how you cut time in a 30-minute TV show series. But this is interesting. The This Is Us episode that Wong is seen watching at the time of the demon attack is the car from season 2. I got excited because it was like, do you mean the horror film from the 70s, The Car? But the episode he watches with Madison is Light and Shadows from season 4. So have they been let's chill and Netflixing and they just cut it?
Come on now. He's living in Carmitage. He's not even living in the mansion in Manhattan, in New York anymore. He's living in Carmitage. You got to think there's not exactly that much exciting going on. So portaling in Madison, probably just livening things up a little bit. Kevin, I do have one other thing with trivia too, because Donnie Blaze had a sling ring. Yes. Do they just hand those things out like they're in a Cracker Jack box?
I'm beginning to think so, yes. And where can I get one of those? Because
You were the one.
what's his name? Spider-Man's best friend knows how to use it now.
Yeah, Ned. I mean, that's what I'm
Ned.
saying. It's like, crack chuckles. And while you were talking, Kevin, I figured it out. Wong, Sorcerer Supreme, the Wonger Chronicles.
By the way, I just want to give a Patty Guggenheim update on her Instagram. It is now up to 28.6 thousand followers.
I think we're causing this, and we're not even live. That's even scarier. Speaking of that, there's a lot of great things happening around the Fandom Podcast Network, so we're going to take a quick break to let you know what is happening. So enjoy. Kevin and I are going to go follow Patty Guggenheim on Instagram if we haven't yet.
Already done it.
Okay, that's what I thought. Here's what's happening on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our Fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville Show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we are back. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that's happening around the Fandom Podcast Network. It's time to start phase 3 of this episode, Kevin. Are we following this week the Book of Law or the Book of Ashante?
Ashante. Isn't that a singer? Well, so, yeah, this is our kind of plot analysis and ties to the MCU. We're just going to have a little fun here, guys. So, fantastic legal weirdness. I also got this from the TV tropes. While the sorcerers of Carmartage are sworn into service for the noble cause, and most of them agree to their traditions, they rely entirely on the verbal agreement with no contracts, legal documents, or any meaningful safety net to prevent misuse of the mystical arts. When Wong tries asking Jen to help set a precedent and legally ban Donnie Blaze from using sorcery in his magic act, Jen has to focus on the potential dangers of it, since it's literally the only play that she has. By the end, she's able to get Donnie to agree after saving him from a legion of demons he accidentally unleashed. Donnie, of course, does have a hype man, which I thought was very funny. A fellow magician there. But Kyle, when you tie this into the MCU, I want to ask you, since you've read the comics as well, we're getting a little more legal stuff thrown in here. And she uses a little strong arm by basically threatening by holding up a demon, which looked really funny. I hope someone makes that, by the way. I think it would be great. Are we going to go into the so-called main MCU movies with a more serious thread and question this stuff from now on? What has she done in the comics to kind of like make this precedent when it comes to the legal aspect of it?
Well, see see the problem is with Jennifer Walters in the comics. Usually, by the time she never gets to really necessarily always finish her court cases because something goes really wacky with them because they
Okay.
usually do tend to involve superpowered individuals, and somebody's always got a grudge out there, and they know where they're at because it's usually televised or something like that. So and she's a little bit more. She is an Avenger in the comics, so she keeps a busy schedule. She doesn't
Okay.
always get to practice enough. Sometimes it's caused problems with her legal license because she hasn't practiced enough. But she's a Hulk. Are we really going to mess with her too much? But but that's again the fun of this show is they can explore some of these oddball things that you don't think about with the MCU. Kind of like what the conversation we had about damage control and how somebody's got to pick up after these fights, even though we've talked about more of the legal sides of damage control. There's always a backside to all this that really doesn't get explored that often. And so it's fun when we get to see this kind of stuff. And I think that's what She-Hulk is really succeeding on playing up is this backside that we normally don't get to see in the comics or in the movies.
I like the fact, though, that we're seeing some success of her actual legal skills here, even though if she has to kind of strong arm it a little bit and, threaten these guys with the demon and stuff. So I like that. But I got to be honest with you, Kyle, one of the fun things that I'm enjoying is the judges and seeing how the judges are reacting to whether it's an objection or a sustain or whether a light elf is going to impersonate them. So I'm curious to see that going forward because whenever we watch other legal shows, we kind of see the same judges back and it makes characters out of them because sometimes the prosecutors or the lawyers have to take a different tack to their approach because they know what judge they're dealing with. So I'm wondering if we're going to see more of that.
I'll be interested to see if we do see a couple of judges, but come on. Any good attorney worth their salt would have been objecting to Madison as a witness for her just getting portaled in the middle of the trial. She wasn't on any witness lists or anything. I mean, really, how do you put up for that cross-examination?
This is true. Okay. So the next topic is the big thing that we get at the end here, Kyle, is evil is petty. Titania has trademarked She-Hulk and is now suing Jen for the use of it after she managed to get out of attacking a courtroom scot-free, mind you. How that happened, maybe we'll find out because, Jen is obviously surprised by that. And as the article writers previously said earlier, that this seems to be a story arc that we're diving into the next half of the season. And Kyle, I have not seen this little teaser that you have seen for what's upcoming. But does that feel like what we're going to be seeing a lot more of this story arc?
We're definitely going to get more Titania. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, spoilers ahead, people, but this thing is making the rounds. It's getting bigger and bigger. Let's just say that Titania is maybe using the She-Hulk trademark to line her pockets a little bit. That's all what I'm saying here.
Understood. Makes sense. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of a lot of people out there, internet trolls that try to jump on podcasters for using stuff that they claim is theirs, but is not. Or, smart people that back in the .com 90s bought up famous people's names and said, give me all money if you want it.
Yeah, that's basically kind of what I think is going on here. So I'm looking very forward to the remainder of She-Hulk. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to see how many episodes we got. Matt Murdock's Charlie Cox's Daredevil in. I think it's going to be at least 2. That's my personal opinion. I hope we see Wong maybe one more time before it's all said and done too. But
nice segue there, Kyle.
Yeah, well, Wong might have a busy social calendar these days. I don't know.
Does Wong have a girlfriend now? I mean, obviously brought back, Madison. Very funny scene. And she seems to, now that she's familiar with him, calls her Wongers. I loved it. I thought this was fun. And will we see these two together again?
Well, no, Kevin. We need to see these two out karaokeing. Hook up with the friends from Shang-Chi and just, we need that.
I'm wondering if we're going to see a sober version of Madison. I'm kind of curious because I want to leave that for character development. Mm-hmm. I want to see her not under the influence of alcohol and, maybe kind of have a little real moment with some humor thrown in there as well. I kind of like to see that. I want to know more about Madison. I'll be perfectly honest with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's very important. In fact, Kevin, before we get into our final part of the show, can you give me one more Patty Guggenheim Instagram update?
Yes. The last one was her followers are at 28.6 thousand, Kyle.
Yeah.
Guess what? They're now at 28.7. She has some videos up there. She has some pictures of the She-Hulk premiere as well with the cast. So make sure you check that out. It's just some pictures, of course, with her having fun as other characters and having fun traveling as well and being on vacation. So check her out.
On that note, now, Kevin, I'm going to throw you a quick curveball here before we close out. I know your brain's a little melty. It's really hot in California. Air conditioning might not be fully going on there.
We have no air conditioning where I am right now.
Before we close out and tell all the good people where they can find us and where they can contact Jennifer Walters should they need legal advice, I do have a question for you. We have D23 this weekend. Big hype thing. We know we're getting some Marvel announcements. You've been, for the last couple episodes, keep the hype down. Let's just see what's coming. Give me one thing that you would like to see possibly announced or come out of D23 regarding the MCU.
You've mentioned this before, I want the cast introduced for Fantastic Four, and I want these untitled projects that they teased to be titled, and I want something X-Men-y confirmed. Give me we've hired this guy as Wolverine or something. Give us something like that. I want something regarding mutants big time, because I think that is really what they've teased enough, and I don't think they should keep dragging that out. They need to say, this is what's happening. This is what you're going to get. Give us that. Is that too much to ask for?
I have my theory on mutant stuff, but I do have to ask you this, Kevin. If we get a Deadpool 3 announcement, would that tide you over on your mutant fix?
Well, we already know it's coming out, but it would be nice.
We don't have an official time.
I know. We know it's coming. That I don't care about because we know it's coming. Unless we know, like, are we going to get him as a cameo somewhere? Can Ryan Reynolds come out and say, hey, guess what? I'm going to be in this movie that has already been announced or something. So no, that's unless we get something like that, we know it's coming. We just don't know when. But unfortunately, when is already a long way off as far as we know.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if they were to show a scene like this is what you're going to see in Ant-Man. Something that we know that's in production. You know what I mean?
I think we're going to get a couple of trailers out of this. I don't think you're going to hear a lot about mutants until we get closer to Phase 6, because I think the mutants are going to be a big thing going into Phase 7.
We're still in Phase 4. That's too far away, Kyle. I can't wait that long.
We're about a month and a half away from the end.
You're talking like Phase 5 is 2 movies in one streaming series. Phase 6 is a long ways away. You just jumped over Phase 5.
Yeah, I know. I don't expect any mutant things in Phase 5, except maybe some little teaser things. No major stuff. But really,
there was some untitled projects in there, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. But D23, I have my suspicions of what's going to come. I'm suspecting Fantastic Four, some major news out of there, possibly even at least the announcement, if nothing else, of Reed and Sue Richards, because there's been a lot of spoiler drops here lately. There's also been a lot of stuff percolating in the last about 24 hours about Tom Holland signing a new Spider-Man contract. Another possible 3-movie deal. So there's some percolating stuff there as well. So we'll see. Is that going
to be Sony World only, or are they going to let him dive into the MCU?
I think it's going to be dive into the MCU because
I hope so.
I don't think Tom Holland would do it unless he can be part of the MCU. So, I think we got a few
Temper
fun.
the expectation.
I'm keeping them tempered. I'm not until I actually hear it, but I do have some sneaking suspicions of. I do think we're going to get Fantastic Four news. I do think that we will get a couple of Disney Plus show announcements, including one that I'm very much suspecting will be Wonder Man, which will be very interesting because that could have a lot of ties into the Scarlet Witch and the Vision, and some fun stuff there. I think we're going to get some Thunderbolts news though, Kevin. I do think we are going to get a little bit more clarification.
I want some Secret War stuff. Wonder Man. I care. I'm not. I don't care about that right now. Give me, make me invest in that later. But Thunderbolts and Secret Wars. That's what I want. That's what I want some teasers for. Give me that.
Yeah. One thing I will bet money on that. I will bet MCU Excelsior points on this. Werewolf by Night will be announced we'll have something more Wolf by Night for the Halloween special that's coming. So that could be fun. But I'm curious. I'm excited. It's going to be a big weekend for not only Marvel but Star Wars and Disney in general. D23 always.
Kyle, it is your job to share all of that news and tag me.
Yep, exactly. Just like it's a lot of if it's anything like Comic-Con, you could be getting a lot of tags.
There we go.
So. With that, we are going to close out this episode of True Believers. I want to thank all you massive Marvel fans for joining us. Of course, there's a few great ways to find not only True Believers, but all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network. Of course, it all starts on our master feed for our audio podcast at fpnet.podbean.com. Of course, you can watch all the videos of all of our great shows on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Fandom Podcast Network. You can also find us all over the place on social media. You can find myself, Kyle, on Twitter at @KyleW or on Instagram at @Kyle or at @KyleFandom. I'm losing my mind because I'm still trying to find Jen Walters on my dating apps, and it's just still not working, Kevin.
I think she might have blocked you by now, bro.
Stalker syndrome. Come on, I'm better than the guy who messes with her as She-Hulk, sees her in her regular form, and then bails.
Well, you might want to try her hotline here. You can call her at 1-877 She-Hulk, where she says, "I go green, so you can get green."
Oh, there you go. Hey, anyway, Tatiana, I'm here for you.
Okay, you can find me, Kevin, at Spartan_Phoenix on Instagram and Twitter, and of course in the True Believers Facebook group for our wonderful Marvel MCU fans.
I appreciate Kevin getting me out of stalking problems right there. So thank you, sir. I know you always look out for me. I appreciate it. Of course, visit, as I said at the beginning of the show, visit our wonderful True Believers page on Facebook and join the group. And we keep you updated with everything going on in the MCU. Of course, visit our Facebook page, Fandom Podcast Network, where everything that's going on in fandom. I have a feeling it's going to be a busy weekend there. You can email us directly at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Follow the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram, Fandom Podcast Network, or on Twitter at FanPod Network. Also, you can support us by going to our TeePublic store. We have all the gear of the Fandom Podcast Network there. Just search for Fandom Podcast Network or the title of your favorite show on the network. And, of course, you can find us on all the major podcast catchers, whether it's iTunes, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're everywhere these days, Kevin. I can't keep
Just search your fan. Yeah, all Apple, all podcast catchers.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, thank you everybody for listening as we get ready to close out. As always, first of all, Excelsior, and more importantly, as always, make ours Marvel.